Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about Batman. So I wanted to talk about Batman today, aka Batman 89, aka Tim Burton's Batman, because this film is turning 35 years old this year. So why not take the time to revisit it, to film that is quite possibly my top 3 most rewatched movies as a kid. In fact, as you can see, I still have the VHS tape right here. I've seen this thing so many times that I even remember the Diet Coke commercial at the beginning of it.
Just for the taste of it.
And my nostalgia for this film is pretty strong, I have to be honest. It's not so strong to the point where I can't acknowledge some of the flaws that this movie has, which we'll talk about later in the video. But this is the film that made me fall in love with Batman. This was my first exposure to Batman. I watched this movie very young. Arguably a little too young, because this movie is a little bit dark and intense for like a 5-year-old, but that was roughly the age I was when I first saw it, but I was just enthralled. I loved everything about it. I think this movie is a big reason why I love kind of just dark, grimy, kind of vibey movies that are in the vein of like Blade Runner or The Crow, just gothic-y, or like Sleepy Hollow, for example. There's another one that's one of my other favorite Tim Burton movies. But I think my love for kind of gothic atmosphere comes from this movie. It's the first thing that I saw as a kid that really had that vibe, and I still think a lot of this movie holds up very well in terms of just pure entertainment value. It's a movie that you can kind of pick apart for a lot of different reasons, which we'll talk about, but ultimately it's important for me to be upfront about my love for this movie, and my love for it has never really waned. I still love it pretty much just as much as I do as a kid. It's not my all-time favorite Batman movie. It may be my favorite Batman movie in my heart. But I have to say, of all the Batman movies I've seen, which I've seen all of the original quadrilogy films, so like the first 2 Tim Burton Batman movies and then the 2 Joel Schumacher movies, which I am not a fan of. Loved them when I was a kid. Don't really love them now. Still love the first 2 Tim Burton Batman movies. In fact, I watch Batman Returns every holiday season. But yeah, so I've seen those. And then, of course, I've seen the Nolan Batman trilogy. Still really love those movies. And I tried watching Batman v Superman, and I couldn't get through it. I thought it was just terrible. I fucking hate Man of Steel. I don't like Zack Snyder. I'm sorry. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for that. Just know it's my opinion. I don't think he's the best filmmaker for superhero movies. He clearly doesn't really understand or respect the characters.
Well, first they demolish Smallville, completely destroy Smallville, and then they completely destroy half of Metropolis.
I'd say more than half.
It is like 9/11 times 100. Superman's not a hero in this movie.
He doesn't actually save any of these people.
No, he doesn't even seem to notice or care.
But I think that's a video for another time. So I haven't really wasted my time with those movies, but absolutely loved the Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves, The Batman film. In fact, that is probably, currently it's definitely in my top 5 movies of the 2020s so far. It's one of my most rewatched films. Love that movie. That'll be a video for another time. I think that's my favorite version of a movie Batman, is that one. But we're going to talk about the 89 one, and what better place to start off than with the great Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is just kind of awesome in everything. And of course, it's known now, or fairly well known, that at the time that this movie was being made and it was being publicized, the casting of Michael Keaton was very frowned upon by the fans. They did not like that casting choice.
Obsessive in his anger and fixation on revenge. But will he be portrayed that way in a new movie from Warner Brothers coming out in June? Many hardcore fans are afraid he won't. They have been writing hundreds of letters to Warner Brothers since they found out about the man cast as Batman.
I think that he's kind of a wimp.
It don't seem that it's right, you know?
He need some muscles on him.
I would have liked to seen a sexier person.
In fact, I believe they sent letters and notes to Warner Brothers about, no, you need to recast him and all this stuff. Originally, one of the people that was up for the role of Batman was freaking Bill Murray. Just imagine that talk about miscasting. Love Bill Murray, but as Bruce Wayne and Batman, I don't think so. But Michael Keaton as Batman is terrific. Specifically his Bruce Wayne. I feel like no other Batman actor has really nailed the Bruce Wayne persona quite as perfectly as Michael Keaton does. He's charming. He's kind of, he's got that vibe of being sleazy, but also being sincere, and also clearly having a dark side that he has to try to conceal. And overall, there's just, he has a charisma, even in the suit, like the way his eyes and his presence in the suit, his physical performance in the suit is great as Batman. I will say that is definitely one of the aspects of Batman 89 that hasn't aged amazingly. I love the look of the suit in theory. Of course, practically speaking, him not being able to turn his head at all. He has to full on move his torso very jarringly like this. And for, Batman, who's essentially a ninja, not being able to move your head during fight scenes is kind of a problem. And so that's one of the aspects I'm like, that part hasn't aged very well. But I still love the design of the suit in this movie. I love the all black. I think it's great. I prefer Batman in all black as opposed to the dark gray. I think the dark gray works for animation, but for film, I want it to be all black. I want a dark silhouette. So yeah, Michael Keaton overall is a great Batman. You know what? I haven't seen the Flash movie because I just, outside of the James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which I think is a genuine anti-superhero masterpiece, not been a fan of the DCEU at all. I liked the first Wonder Woman movie. That was pretty good. But haven't seen any of the other movies. Haven't watched the Justice League movie or the... I was about to say Anchorman. The Aquaman movie. Haven't seen that. Ezra Miller is a fucking monster in real life, so I don't want to watch any movie with him in it, quite frankly. But I might end up just watching the Flash movie only for Michael Keaton alone. I'm curious to see how he fills that role again. So I might end up watching that movie just for Michael Keaton, and if I have any thoughts on it, I might do a review on it later on. But overall, Michael Keaton, excellent Batman. The Batman that I have the most nostalgia for. Now we got to talk about Jack Nicholson, who still ranks as being probably the second greatest Joker, because Heath Ledger really set the bar so high, and I feel bad for any actor trying to follow Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean, Jared Leto was garbage. Obviously, Mark Hamill Joker, right? He's one of the best Jokers ever. He's probably he probably resembles the comic book version of the Joker the best, Mark Hamill. But yeah, no, Jack Nicholson's Joker is wonderful. It's a bit on the campier side. I mean, that's the thing about Batman 89 is that when the movie came out, it was seen as being the darker, more sincere version of Batman. And that's true. This movie is definitely darker than compared to the Adam West Batman, which it's kind of hard to believe, but before Batman 89, people who weren't involved in the comic book circles, who weren't familiar with Frank Miller's kind of revamping of the character in Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns, Year One in particular is still my favorite Batman comic of all time. But most people thought of Batman as the Adam West Batman. For a long time, that's what Batman was perceived by the mainstream public. And it wasn't until the 89 version of Batman where people like, oh, so Batman's kind of a badass now. It's like, well, yeah, we're trying to bring back that vibe. So there is a lot of darkness. There's more intensity in the 89 Batman in comparison to the Adam West Batman. But in hindsight, 89 Batman is still pretty damn campy, and I am okay with that. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy revisiting the movie so much. I like that the movie isn't afraid to get a little silly, and Jack Nicholson's performance as the Joker is a big reason as to why that is, and as to why I love it so much. And I love the way he puts like his human makeup on underneath his clown face, and Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson's clearly having a ball. This is one of his, I mean, Jack Nicholson's been in a lot of movies where he gets to act bonkers. This is definitely one of the most memorable bonkers Nicholson performances. It's a huge highlight. Kim Basinger is stunning in this movie, very beautiful. Her character is kind of your basic, she's the romantic character for Bruce Wayne, Vicky Vale, the reporter. she doesn't get a whole lot to do in the movie other than being the damsel in distress. You know, it was a comic book movie in the late 80s, so that's kind of to be expected. That does get to not only one of my bigger gripes with the movie, but a lot of people's gripes with the movie. Well, there are two aspects of 89 Batman that are legitimate flaws that I can't look past. The Vicky Vale going into the Batcave, like, Alfred, what are you doing? Like, just revealing his identity like that, that's not cool. And then the other one is the Joker being the killer of Batman's parents. Never was a big fan of that change. It's not necessary. I know, in theory, I understand what Tim Burton was going for. Like, he wanted a more personal connection between the Joker and the Batman, but you didn't need to have that. The Batman's relationship with the Joker works despite not him killing his parents. You know what I mean? So that change wasn't really the best. And of course the Vicky Vale thing, and then, of course, there's the more technical aspects of the way Batman moves and his suit not being the most practical in the world. But honestly, everything about this movie is still so awesome. I love the Gothic setting, the matte paintings, the set design, the overall look and vibe of the movie is hands down my favorite thing about it. And of course, I can't go on without talking about Danny Elfman's score, which is not only the best Batman score. To be perfectly honest, as much as I really love the Nolan Batman trilogy, the Hans Zimmer score is okay. It doesn't even compare to Danny Elfman's score, which is not only the best like superhero score ever in my opinion, it's one of my favorite film scores ever. Like, I put it up there with like Ennio Morricone's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and like John Carpenter's Halloween. The score is a huge reason why this movie is so awesome. It just adds to the dark, mysterious, gothic vibe. And oh man, there's just so much about this movie that's just so wonderful. And yes, I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but it ranks as still being one of my favorite childhood movies. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Tim Burton's Batman. I still think this movie is great despite some of its flaws. I can overlook it. My love for it is simply too strong. So tell me, guys, what are your thoughts on this movie? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's your all-time favorite Batman movie? Is Michael Keaton the best Batman? Is he your all-time favorite? Listen in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching.